Welcome, I'm Feek the Signifier, and I just want some of your time. I don't really like Lee Daniels' work. I tried Empire, it was okay, but it didn't hold my interest too tough. I've never seen Precious. At the time it came out, I knew too many real life families and children going through that, so it didn't make sense for me to pay to see a movie about it. Same thing with The Butler and pretty much anything he's ever made. It's just not my cup of tea. I can't call his work bad, it's just not interesting to me. So when I heard he was going to be in charge of a reboot for the Wonder Years, I honestly didn't care. I barely remember the original show, and I don't check for Daniels as a creator, so I was fine letting it miss me. But then I looked at some of the ashier parts of my social media feed and hope there's no gay stuff. I got $5 saying there's going to be a gay character shown in the first episode, and by the end of season 1 there's going to be a character introduced. Oh, let me not comment, but I am anyways, LOL. Time to push the agenda. The agenda. The agenda. Yeah, I really mean to been getting to this one. So I know I said Tenet was up next, and low-key I was actually planning on taking a hiatus, but I can squeeze this one out real quick. It's just a little bit of light work. Before I get started, I want to make it clear that I, as you know, am a cishet black man, and as I make attempts to speak on representation for queer black people in the media, I am in no way an expert on it and will likely have to gloss over some important elements of the issue. This video is not really about queer representation, but more about how some cishet black men respond to queer representation and why it's really fucking stupid. So please don't take this as some type of overview on the issue or as some type of declaration that all the problems in the queer community in terms of representation have been solved. It's just my take on what needs to happen for my particular neck in the woods. I hope that my previous work on this channel has shown that I am not here to pick on black men. One of the goals I had in mind as a content creator was to penetrate through the very binary image that black men tend to have in the media eye, something that I touched on greatly in one of my earlier videos. Go watch it. This is not to say that I am not and will not be critical. It's just that I always wanted to be clear that when I am critical, when I do take us to task, especially in a public venue like this, it's always with the goal of making us better, of teasing out the ways in which we come up short and offering a perspective that I hope others can appreciate and learn from. But sometimes...
Man, first of all, you're stupid. Let's just get that out the way.
It is a myth that black men as a whole are less progressive than any other group of men. The way we vote, the way we raise children and engage in family life, despite the rhetoric to the opposite, black men are not any more patriarchal or misogynistic than any other race of men in this country. However, the misogynistic, patriarchal, and homophobic behavior we do engage in is amplified by our blackness and poverty and experiences under white supremacy, and well, that's a whole other set of videos to fully explain. But I want to point that out as I talk about this particularly dumb tradition of homophobia in some black men. There are a lot of black men who believe in this myth of the gay agenda, which is a broad and illogical myth that states that the media, which of course is ran by Jews and white people, is purposefully and systematically eliminating appropriate images of black masculinity and replacing them with effeminate and queer images for the purpose of somehow tricking black men and children into being gay. Maybe it really doesn't make a lot of sense, but at its core is the idea that there is an increase in homosexuality that is unnatural and being caused by outside forces, because of course real niggas don't do that shit. So let's first quickly point out how ridiculous of a belief that is. Aside from pointing out how statistically there's been minimal change in the representation of homosexuals in the country and the fact that homosexuality in the black community is nothing new, but for some people, seeing is believing. Often when I hear this complaint, it's in regard to the show The Chi, which is again a show I tried but didn't watch for long. The show's first 2 seasons all centered around pretty typical urban drama for a group of mostly male characters. However, in season 3, the show shifted relatively drastically to begin to tell stories about more queer and trans black women. In this case, I could imagine that if you were a cishet male fan of the show, you'd be disappointed that the show's subject matter switched to decenter the stories that you were most interested in. So I wouldn't fault anyone for not being as interested in stories that didn't reflect their world, experiences, or interests. Save that for later. Furthermore, over the last 10 years or so, queer black characters have also popped up in everything from Young Justice to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And unfortunately, this rise in representation for black queer people has the predictable side effect of triggering some cishet men into thinking that it can't possibly be coincidental and that somehow someone has to be setting yet another trap to destroy black men. But to be fair, let's look at the logic here. 1. Are there more queer black images on TV? Yes, this is definitely true, but there are more black images on TV, period, and there are more queer images on TV, period. Black people, and queer black people have more opportunity to tell their stories, so their stories are going to relate more to them. 2, have normative images of black masculinity now suddenly disappeared from the media? Hell no. This is really the dumbest part of this theory. Cis hetero black men have never been able to see themselves represented as widely, complexly, and effectively as we have in the last decade. Black creators like Ryan Coogler and Kenya Barris have been on the scene for years now. Newcomers like Shaka King and Jordan Peele are killing the game, and OGs like Spike Lee and F. Gary Gray are still pushing the envelope, still making amazing works greatly focused on cis hetero experiences of black men. If this is some type of agenda, it's really failing to make an impact. And 3, just as a cherry, how would this conspiracy work exactly? Is it to make us less threatening and less manly, because that flies in the face of every police shooting that has ever happened? Is it to destroy the black family, because crack and the prison industrial complex already did a great job of that for the last 40 years? Is it just to make everyone gay? Is that a thing? Is it like a boss battle or leveling up in a role-playing game, and once you see the queer images on TV enough, a little bar fills up to the top and then automatically you become gay? There's a saying that's usually reserved for white people that says that if you're used to privilege, then equality can sometimes feel like oppression. And I think that applies here. And it's also amplified because black men do know what it feels like to be oppressed. And there's a triggering effect to anything that we think is threatening us. So, leading with empathy now, I get that for a lot of straight black men born into the role of maintaining and reifying patriarchy, but also constantly having to manage and negotiate their masculinity under white supremacy is no easy feat. And emasculating black men was and is a thing. It's just usually done economically and through the criminal justice system. I get where this urge comes from. Black men are taught by our fathers, uncles, mothers, and aunts that we have to be strong and be manly, and that these masculine traits are the only ones that will allow us to survive white supremacy. There's a sense of discomfort in being faced with something that for the majority of your life you've been taught is wrong. But at a certain point, you got to stop making excuses and at a minimum use your brain and grow. If you consider yourself the type of man who is a leader and a protector, then you're supposed to lead and protect the whole village. You're supposed to provide and support everyone, because the reality is that those people, gay men, black women, and especially trans black women, are literally being murdered at the hands of dudes just like us. And I'm not hearing enough about that. And I don't feel like enough people are invested in fixing that. But every time Dwayne Wade takes a picture with his daughter, it's like 50,000 Negroes in the comment section explaining how somehow this and not white supremacy, not police brutality, not the prison industrial complex. No, this is what's wrong with black people. But I'm straying from the topic. Look, believe it or not, yes, there most definitely is a gay agenda, but it's not a conspiracy. It's not white supremacy trying to turn everyone gay or oppress straight people. It's just queer people seeking the power to live openly and freely, to be seen as equal and pursue happiness and wholeness without fearing how their identity may impede upon that. It's the same agenda that any marginalized group should have. And if you're really about that pro-black life, then you shouldn't be so quick to sow division among your own people. You shouldn't be calling it a conspiracy just because your queer black peers are finally getting a chance to tell their own stories. You don't have to like season 3 of The Chi or watch this new Wonder Years show. But you also shouldn't be participating in ugly homophobic and transphobic criticism. The bottom line of all of this is that queer black people are fighting a different battle than we are as men. Because in many cases, they're fighting us too. They are getting it from all sides. And if anyone should have their back, it's us. And if you at the march with the guns talking about protect black people, black is sacred, but you can't figure out how not to be homophobic and transphobic, then are you really about that life? Or are you just so hurt from how you get treated by white supremacy that you feel the need to have power and the power to step on someone, anyone who you have a level of societal power over, and you want to excuse and hide this abhorrent attitude under the guise of pro-blackness? I hope that's not the case, but from a certain distance, for some of y'all, it's hard to tell. But that's it, y'all. This has been Feek the Signifier. I appreciate getting some of y'all time. Please give me about 20 more minutes and click this video popping up right here. I'm gonna be gone for a couple of weeks at minimum, trying to get through some other life stuff, and then I'm coming back with a review on Tenet. Check out that. Stay tuned. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.